It was supposed to be just another weekend, but this one turned my entire life upside down. For 8 long years, I had been chasing something, working tirelessly, sacrificing, and convincing myself that the timing wasn't right. It was a dream I thought only I could fulfill, a challenge that seemed like mine alone to conquer. But everything changed when my younger brother Alex casually stepped in and did what I couldn't. And the strangest part? I wasn't jealous. I was proud, maybe even relieved, but there was something more, something I didn't expect to feel. Let me backtrack a little. Alex is the kind of person who lights up every room he walks into. He's spontaneous, adventurous, and always carries this magnetic energy that draws people to him. We've always been close, but in some ways, we couldn't be more different. While I'm the planner, the perfectionist, and the one who overthinks everything, Alex is carefree and fearless. It's not that I didn't believe in him, but I never imagined he'd step into my world, let alone outshine me in something I'd worked on for nearly a decade. It all started when I told Alex about my struggles over dinner one evening. I was venting about how every effort seemed to fall short and how I felt like giving up on this thing that had consumed me for so long. He listened, nodding thoughtfully, before saying something so casual that I almost laughed. "Why don't I give it a shot?" At first, I didn't take him seriously, but Alex wasn't joking. The next morning, he dove headfirst into the challenge I had wrestled with for years. I watched him work, not with hesitation or doubt like I had, but with this unshakable confidence that seemed effortless. And then, out of nowhere, he succeeded, just like that. But here's where things get tricky. As proud as I was, there was an underlying question I couldn't shake. How did he manage to do it so easily when I couldn't for all those years? And what did it mean for our relationship now that he had achieved something I'd always considered mine? You won't believe what happened next. As I watched Alex celebrate his success, I couldn't help but replay the moment over and over in my head. It wasn't just what he accomplished, it was how he did it. I'd poured my heart and soul into this for years, meticulously planning every step and second-guessing every decision. Yet Alex, with his easygoing attitude and almost reckless confidence, managed to pull it off in a matter of days. I tried not to let it bother me, but the questions kept piling up. Was I doing something wrong all along? Did I overthink things too much? Or was Alex just better at this than I was? The thought stung, but it wasn't about competition. It was deeper than that. Like his success had revealed something about me that I wasn't ready to face. That evening, I found myself scrolling through old memories, photos of Alex and me growing up together. We'd always been a team, despite our differences. I was the older sibling, the one who always felt the weight of responsibility, while Alex was the carefree one, the risk taker. But maybe that's what gave him the edge this time. He wasn't afraid of failing like I was. When I confronted Alex about it, he brushed it off like it was nothing. "I just didn't think too hard about it," he said with a grin. "You're the one who made it seem so impossible." His words hit me harder than I expected. Had I been the one standing in my own way all these years? But even as I tried to process everything, something about Alex's reaction didn't sit right. He wasn't just confident. He seemed too confident, like he knew something I didn't. That's when I realized there was more to his success than he was letting on. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Alex's success than met the eye. Sure, he was talented and fearless, but there was something about how easily he brushed off my questions that didn't sit right with me. It wasn't like him to keep secrets. Or maybe I just never noticed before. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't completely know my own brother. The more I thought about it, the more I started to notice the little things. He'd been unusually quiet the days leading up to his breakthrough. spending hours behind closed doors and dodging my attempts to check in. When I asked him directly how he'd done it, he gave me vague answers, almost as if he was avoiding the real explanation. And then there was the way he acted afterward. Alex was confident, sure, but now he seemed almost smug. It wasn't arrogance, exactly, but there was a certain glint in his eye, like he was holding on to a piece of the puzzle that I wasn't meant to see. I tried to dismiss it, telling myself I was overthinking again, something I've been guilty of my whole life. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more the doubts crept in. What if Alex hadn't been entirely honest? What if there was more to his success than just luck or raw talent? One night while Alex was out, I found myself standing outside his room, debating whether to go in. I knew it was wrong, but curiosity gnawed at me. Could there be something in there that explained everything? As I turned the doorknob, my heart raced, not knowing what I was about to find, or how it might change everything I thought I knew about Alex. I pushed the door open slowly, my breath caught in my throat. Alex's room was the same as always, a cluttered mix of gym gear, books, and random gadgets he'd picked up over the years. But now, every object seemed to hold a secret. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but something inside me said the answers were here, hidden among the chaos. My eyes landed on his desk, where his laptop sat, slightly ajar. Alex was always glued to that thing lately, working on something he claimed was no big deal. But it clearly was. Hesitantly, I opened it and saw a series of tabs still open. The first one caught my attention immediately. A private forum I'd never heard of before, filled with cryptic discussions and strange advice. The words felt oddly familiar, like they were connected to the very challenge I'd been struggling with for years. As I scrolled through, my stomach tightened. Alex had been getting help, not the kind of help you'd casually Google, but something deeper, more calculated. It was as if he'd stumbled upon a shortcut that no one else knew existed. Each thread seemed tailored to solving exactly the kind of problems I'd been battling with, breaking them down step by step. But it wasn't just the forum that left me uneasy. There was a folder on his desktop labeled Backup, and against my better judgment, I clicked on it. Inside were documents, screenshots, and voice notes, evidence of weeks, maybe months, of preparation. Alex hadn't just winged it like he made it seem. He'd been secretly working behind the scenes, using resources I didn't even know existed. As the pieces started coming together, a wave of emotions hit me. He had every right to use his own methods, but why keep it from me? Why let me believe he'd succeeded so effortlessly? Was he trying to prove something to me or himself? Or was there something else driving him that I didn't yet understand? Before I could make sense of it all, I heard the sound of the front door creaking open. Alex was home. My heart raced as I quickly closed the laptop and stepped back, trying to calm the storm of questions swirling in my mind. Whatever happened next, I knew I couldn't let him find out I'd been in his room. Not yet. I barely had time to steady my breathing before Alex's footsteps echoed down the hall. My pulse quickened as I glanced around, making sure everything in his room looked untouched. The laptop was back in place, the chair slightly angled, just as I'd found it. I slipped out, quietly pulling the door shut behind me, and darted into my room just as Alex's shadow stretched across the hallway. Sitting on my bed, I tried to process what I'd just discovered. It wasn't just the fact that Alex had been preparing for weeks or using resources I didn't know about. It was the way he'd hidden it from me. He had made it all look so effortless, as if he'd walked into success without a second thought. Why would he lie about something like that? The next few days were unbearable. I couldn't look at Alex the same way without replaying what I'd found. Meanwhile, he carried on as if nothing had changed, flashing his usual grin and joking about how I should loosen up and take notes. His confidence felt almost mocking now, but I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed to know more. Late one night, when Alex was out again, I decided to dig deeper. This time, I wasn't looking for clues in his room. I wanted answers from the source. The forum he'd been using seemed to hold the key. After some searching, I managed to find it, though it required an invite code to access. I almost gave up, but then I remembered something. Alex had saved his login credentials in an autofill file on his browser. Hesitantly, I tried his information, and it worked. As I clicked through the threads, a chilling realization began to sink in. The forum wasn't just about tips and strategies. It was about taking calculated risks, sometimes at the expense of others. There were stories of people leveraging personal connections, bending rules, and, in some cases, outright manipulation to achieve their goals. And then I saw his username. Alex hadn't just been a passive observer, he was one of the most active members. His posts revealed a side of him I didn't recognize. Sharp, calculating, and willing to do whatever it took to succeed. But what really hit me was a thread he had started weeks ago, titled, "How to Outshine Someone You Care About Without Them Knowing." The more I read, the more unsettled I became. His posts weren't about collaboration or shared success. They were about strategy, about positioning himself as the one who always came out on top. And as I scrolled further, I found something that made my stomach drop. It wasn't just about me. Alex had been doing this for years, subtly stepping into my shadow, learning my weaknesses, and using them to his advantage. His success wasn't an accident. It was the result of careful planning, right down to how he'd framed it to seem effortless. Suddenly, the sound of a car door outside snapped me back to reality. Alex was home again. But this time, I wasn't just hiding what I knew. I was holding on to the knowledge that everything between us might never be the same again. The front door clicked open, and I heard Alex's familiar footsteps. My mind raced. This wasn't just about what I'd discovered. It was about everything his actions meant. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion, but above all, I needed answers. Before I could overthink it, I stepped into the hallway and called out, "Alex, we need to talk." He froze mid-step, his usual carefree expression replaced with surprise. "What's up?" he said, trying to play it cool. I didn't waste any time. "I know about the forum," I said bluntly. His face shifted, the mask of confidence slipping for a fraction of a second. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Alex let out a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Look, it's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, "because right now, it looks like you've been playing me this whole time, making me believe you did something amazing on your own when you had everything mapped out from the start." For a moment, he just stared at me, and then he said something I didn't expect. "I wasn't trying to beat you," he said softly. "I was trying to help you." His words caught me off guard. Alex explained that he knew how much this challenge had been eating away at me, how I'd been so caught up in perfection that I couldn't move forward. "I joined that forum to figure out how to solve the problem, not for me, but for you," he admitted. "But then, it worked, and I realized you might not want the help." I stood there, speechless, as he added one final twist. "The real success wasn't mine. It's yours now." The front door clicked open, and I heard Alex's familiar footsteps. My mind raced. This wasn't just about what I'd discovered. It was about everything his actions meant. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion. But above all, I needed answers. Before I could overthink it, I stepped into the hallway and called out, "Alex, we need to talk." He froze mid-step, his usual carefree expression replaced with surprise. "What's up?" he said, trying to play it cool. I didn't waste any time. "I know about the forum," I said bluntly. His face shifted, the mask of confidence slipping for a fraction of a second. He knew exactly what I was talking about. Alex let out a sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Look, it's not what you think," he started, but I cut him off. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, "because right now it looks like you've been playing me this whole time, making me believe you did something amazing on your own when you had everything mapped out from the start." For a moment, he just stared at me, and then he said something I didn't expect. "I wasn't trying to beat you," he said softly. "I was trying to help you." His words caught me off guard. Alex explained that he knew how much this challenge had been eating away at me, how I'd been so caught up in perfection that I couldn't move forward. "I joined that forum to figure out how to solve the problem. Not for me, but for you," he admitted. "But then, it worked, and I realized you might not want the help." I stood there, speechless, as he added one final twist. "The real success wasn't mine. It's yours now." I stood there, letting Alex's words sink in. My emotions shifted from anger to something I couldn't quite name, a mix of understanding, gratitude, and maybe a little guilt. He wasn't trying to outshine me. He was trying to show me a way forward when I couldn't see it for myself. "I didn't tell you because I thought you'd be upset," Alex continued, his voice steady but sincere. "You've always been the one who had it all figured out, and I didn't want you to think I doubted you. But I hated seeing you stuck, feeling like you weren't good enough. I just wanted to prove to you that it was possible." I sat down, the weight of the revelation finally lifting. He wasn't my rival. He was my brother, and in his own way, he'd been looking out for me. The forum, the shortcuts, the late-night planning, it wasn't about competing or undermining me. It was his way of stepping in when he thought I needed it most, even if he went about it in the wrong way. "I wish you'd just told me," I said quietly, meeting his gaze. "I know